Tonight on the Struggle Isolation Edition, Jobseeker rates fall below the minimum wage, climate change gets pushed out of sight, out of mind, and a trip that puts the day in holiday. Back in June, Victoria made a decisive choice in its pandemic response. The state government ditched its traditional blue logo for a purple press conference backdrop. Now, a change in color scheme might not seem all that useful in combating an invisible enemy, but there's more to this than meets the eye. The color purple is ingrained in our nostalgic childhood memories of Teletubbies, Blueberry Violet, and yelling "Wake up, Jeff." Perhaps this palette shift is in an attempt to reassure the public, as if they were kids, that the grown-ups in charge are managing the situation. Or maybe it's just that purple really brings out the best in Brett Sutton's eyes. But seeing how pervasive COVID-19 has been to every aspect of life, surely it's time we embrace the purple theme beyond the realm of coronavirus marketing and replace more of the blue branding. Perhaps Victorian number plates could take on a new hue, or Premier Dan Andrews could replace his blue suit jacket with a Willy Wonka one. Or maybe even next year's Australian Open could swap its blue surfaces for lavender coats. And while these violet ventures might seem a bit fanciful, the state government has announced its plans to get Victorians back out dining under ultraviolet rays, with millions of dollars allocated to kickstart outdoor eating this summer. For more on what will hopefully be the start of a purple patch for the food service industry, we now cross to our health correspondent, Condescend.
I'm here today at the property of someone's house, not sure who, I'm definitely breaking the law, to discuss the newly proposed plan that forces cafe and restaurant owners to only serve customers outdoors. Now, it's no secret the COVID-19 restrictions have meant the hospitality industry has had to cough up quite a lot of dough lately, but it turns out that was only an entree for what was to come next. In an attempt to spice things up, Daniel Andrews will grant businesses $5,000 to turn their outdoor areas into open-air dining rooms. I decided to research into this issue. As the health correspondent, I dead set had no reason to be doing this, but did it anyway. It took me a little while to learn what the issue was about, but soon I was able to split the beans. To get a taste of this issue, we spoke with local food critic Ollie Voyle to learn more about how the dining experience will change.
I just think that if we have to eat outdoors, there's no way it can be done. The whole way of consuming food will just be changed irreparably. I mean, it's just impossible. How if I'm outdoors and the waiter's indoors? Well, how can I just click my fingers to get them to come over to me? I mean, are you being served? No, I'm not being served, thank you very much.
Although Ollie's ability to reference outdated 70s sitcoms hadn't dampened, his ability to eat did dampen.
You take this piece of toast, slightly burnt, but that's okay, graze a bit of butter on it, and I can easily eat this indoors. See, it's not a problem, But if I take this outside, piece of toast, I can't eat it. Watch. I don't know why, I just can't eat it.
From this, it's quite clear that an inability to eat outside could be a very serious issue. But this was just a morsel. I wanted to learn more, which is why I spoke to an awfully similarly looking man who happened to be an expert in foodology. His name is Dr. Rhys Otto, and although he was still slightly salty about the issue, he was able to offer me a more savoury opinion.
I don't think cafe or restaurant owners have the time or the money to do this. Let us be serious. I just think this is a piecemeal policy, and it could do quite a lot of damage to businesses.
So let me get this straight. Are you saying that if we don't go indoors, Daniel Andrews will have egg on his face? Judging by the doctor's striking good looks and steely blue eyes, it was clear that this issue was out of the frying pan and into the fire. In any case, opinions appear to be banana split, with the path of yeast resistance seems to be sticking with Uber Eats. Studio, back to you in the Tavleen. Oh, banana split. Oh, that's funny, because it's a pun. No, I just got it. Sometimes I say stuff without even realising. Yeah, but I'm Con. That was good.
Far out, Brussels sprout. In other COVID-related news, and what isn't these days, the internet has been the breeding ground for a number of conspiracy theories challenging the mainstream media and government responses to the pandemic, with conspiracies ranging from a rogue premier to coronavirus being a man-made bioweapon. Researchers have stressed that these theories are a public health risk and a hurdle for controlling coronavirus around the world. One study found that of people most likely to support COVID-19 conspiracy theories, only 62% wear a mask every day when in the vicinity of others, in comparison to 95% of those who don't buy into these theories. To look at both sides of this debate, we now cross to our Culture War correspondent Penelope and truth seeker Alex.
Today I'm joined by truth seeker Alex James. Now, she's known for, let's just say, some outrageous beliefs, but let's hear her out. Are you there, Alex?
Hey Penelope, thanks for talking to me. It would have been nice to see you face to face, but we couldn't interfere with the government's trafficking plans, now could we?
I'm sorry, did you say trafficking? Do you care to explain what that means?
How do you sheep always miss these things? Coronavirus restrictions are only in place as a mechanism for the Victorian government to justify a curfew. Now, the curfew is being used to cover up the government's trafficking activity. Kids, drugs, you name it, they are moving them. Have you not been seeing these mystery planes flying around late at night after curfew?
Well, while it's true the government hasn't given a clear reason as to why the curfew's in place, its main aim is to generally limit the spread of the virus by keeping people at home as often as possible. And I can't even believe I need to say this, but there's no trafficking happening. I repeat, no trafficking is happening.
You are just as bad as the biased mainstream media and the communist government spitting out all this cover-up bullshit. How about you actually look at the facts rather than buying into their propaganda? I heard 4 planes fly over my house last night. Do you think that was a coincidence?
Well, of course, there's still a number of flights coming to and from Melbourne. People are travelling for work and in some circumstances going to see family if required.
I can't believe this. You are brainless. Oh, and don't even get me started on chemtrails. You don't think the planes flying over my house are spreading their chemicals all over me?
Okay, I think we're going to end this here. It was nice to hear from you, as always. Back to you, Tavleen.
Top-notch insight as always. We are off to a quick break. Welcome back. Prime Minister Scott Morrison has been in the news again recently for refusing to commit to net zero emissions by 2050. At this point, it really feels like the Liberal Party just doesn't care about climate change. But to be fair,
other breaking news. Water. Wet.
Seriously, after former Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull openly admitted the Liberal Party is plagued by climate denial, if you actually think they care about climate change, I've got an onion I would like to sell you.
Very good. Wow. There you go. I'll leave you with that one.
It's not just Scott Morrison though. Leaders all over the world have continually refused to accept the seriousness of climate change. Only a few weeks ago, Donald Trump had this to say about global warming in regards to the California bushfires.
It'll start getting cooler. You just watch.
I wish science agreed with you.
Now, as much as we all would like to believe President Trump, he's not got the best track record when predicting, well, anything. One creative way to get people to care about climate change was proposed by Japan's Environment Minister Shinjiro Koizumi, who said, in order for people to care,
It gotta be fun. It gotta be cool. You gotta be sexy too.
For more on this idea, we now cross to our millennial correspondent, Emily.
Thanks, Tavleen, and welcome back to I'm a Millennial, Get Me Out of Here. Now, like a lot of people my age, I believe the overwhelming consensus of scientists that say that climate change is real and affects us all. I mean, look around you. The evidence is out there. We've got hurricanes, we've got tornadoes, bushfires, $6 lattes. Okay, so I can't prove that last one is technically a climate change issue, but it's still a serious problem that affects us all. Now, unfortunately, not everyone takes climate change as seriously as me. Despite the Paris Climate Agreement, many countries are unwilling to commit to zero emissions by 2050. But Japan's Environment Minister has a plan. Make it sexy. That's right, things are about to get hot and steamy. No, I mean that pretty literally. I mean, they call it global warming for a reason if we don't do anything. And if this man is the face of international carbon neutral energy, I think we're off to a pretty good start. Now let's start with Scott Morrison. And you'd think this would be tricky since the man famously, quite aggressively, loves coal.
This is coal. Don't be afraid. Don't be scared.
But it's actually pretty easy. All we've got to do is make it sexy. During a climate emergency, ScoMo loves nothing more than a relaxing Hawaiian beach holiday. The sun, the sand. He just whips his suit right off and lets it all hang out. Oh no. All we need to do is convince him that climate change is actually the name of a refreshing tiki bar concoction mixed with Coca-Cola, and it'll disappear faster than J.K. Rowling's career. But what about everyday Australians? Well, according to a YouGov poll in January, 21% of Aussies don't think that climate change is a serious issue. So how can we make it look sexy? 2 words. Lara Bingle. Well, technically it's Lara Worthington now, since she's married. She can make anything sexy. She did it in 2006 for Tourism Australia, and she can do it now for climate change. So come on, Australians, this is a serious issue, and everyone's got to help.
So where the bloody hell are you?
Back to you, Tavleen.
Thanks, Emily. In other travel news, Qantas' flight to nowhere sold out in 10 minutes, making it the fastest selling flight in the airline's history. I mean, I get it. We've been itching to travel, some of us more than others. But are we really this desperate? The answer is yes. Yes, we are. This isn't the only travel adjacent thing being offered in the market. It's not even the only safe travel adjacent thing Qantas is offering. Qantas started selling merch last month, business class PJs as well as first class Tim Tams. What makes them first class? They come in packs of 1, so you know they're fancy. And because once you're finished with it, you have to head over to the supermarket and buy a family pack. Airlines also started selling first class mixed nuts and plain food. Which people actually bought? The same people who wouldn't eat plain food when it was included in their tickets. An airline in Taiwan also offered a flight to nowhere. Literally nowhere. It just flew around the region for several hours and then landed. More than 7,000 people applied for that. So yes, we are desperate. We head over to our PR manager for the scoop.
Thanks, Tavleen. Nothing is more Australian than taking a holiday. It's not even December yet, and I think we're all planning our Christmas break and New Year celebrations and trying to take 18 days of annual leave and turn it into 48 days between now and Christmas 2021.
For those of us who thought 2020 was over, with travel bans, border closures and house arrest, Qantas has us covered. Qantas is offering passengers a one-way round-trip flight. The flight departs and lands in Sydney and takes passengers through some of Australia's most incredible sites, such as the Great Barrier Reef and Uluru. The plane cruises at a low 4,000 feet, so you're sure to get the best possible view, and ticket prices have started at $787. What a bargain! A return trip to the Great Barrier Reef alone used to cost $500, and you would have had to pay for accommodation. Now, if you're judging this godsend, thinking, what's the point if I can't even get out of the plane? Let me be real with you. Australia is dangerous. We don't like to admit it, but especially outside and at our great landmarks, everything can kill you. From our incredible kangaroos to our majestic, albeit scary, ugly emus, and even our magpies, they all want us dead. So if you ask me, Qantas is offering the whole package. Plane ride, check.
Flight attendants offering us drinks, check. Being able to see the most incredible sights in the world, check. And being able to be back home in time, jump in bed and watch The Bachelor, check.
Thanks, Suze. We are off to a short break. Welcome back again. In some good news for fans of Bertie, the federal government cut coronavirus Jobseeker Supplement last Friday from $550 per fortnight to just $250. This meant those relying on payments plunged 10% below the poverty line before the subsidy scrapped entirely at the end of the year. Yes, for a brief few months, people who were on Jobseeker received enough support to be above poverty line for the first time since a short 2-month period at the end of 1993. But as the federal government begins to wind down direct stimulus support that prevented complete economic collapse during the first wave of coronavirus lockdowns, people are going to suffer. Which people exactly? The 13% of the workforce who are unemployed and would once again find themselves at the receiving end of the neoliberal unemployed industrial complex. To give them a few tips to help find them a job and escape poverty, our very own careers advisor joins us now.
I don't know about you, Tavleen, but when Frydenberg slashed Jobseeker to back below the poverty line, I teared up a little. In happiness. As Josh and every other Liberal since the moment their dads gave them their first job is so fond of saying, the best form of welfare is a job. Especially since actual welfare isn't even enough to pay for 3 meals in a day. And when you don't have a job, what better motivation is there than the threat of starvation and homelessness? I certainly can't think of one. Maybe the people who can't get one are lazy. Maybe they're unmotivated. Or maybe they just prefer to play video games and eat chicken tenders all day. If I know millennials, it's a combination of all three. As Australia's greatest ever treasurer, Joe Hockey, once said, there are 2 types of people in this country, the lifters and leaners. We have temporarily had to amend that since COVID hit, as suddenly plenty of lifters have found themselves thrown onto Jobseeker with all the other leaners. Let's call them temporarily embarrassed lifters. But now that the pandemic is definitely over for Australia, we don't have to think about those material circumstances that lead to unemployment, and we can go back to humiliating and punishing those poor, contemptuous leaners. However, if for some reason a temporarily embarrassed lifter has trouble finding a job, well, I've got some tips for you. Tip 1. Try joining the gig economy. Never mind that there is evidence that the insecure nature of the work exacerbated Victoria's second wave. The gig economy is where the money is at. Try one of those newer gig apps like Uber for evictions. Business is sure to be booming once Dictator Dan ends the moratorium. Tip 2. Become a mutual obligations caseworker. The logic is simple. The government spends over $1 billion a year on outsourcing employment services. So why can't you cash in too? And finally, and most importantly, get your parents to help you break into the property market. This happens all the time, and afterwards, you can sell your story of your rags to riches primogeniture to the local news. They just eat it up. Well, I hope that helps you doll bloggers stop wasting my taxpayer dollars. Back to you, Tavleen.
Savvy advice there, Em. Moving on to other news, and recently the world lost a legal giant, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was a true and dedicated pioneer of women's rights, with her death leading to an outpouring of heartbreak around the world. Mourners gathered on the steps of the Supreme Court to celebrate and honor the life and career of Ginsburg. It's hard to imagine the death of a judge evoking such global remorse, but that was the power of RBG. She spent her life fighting for equality and was fiercely protective of progressive ideals on a conservative US Supreme Court.
So the effort was to change all the laws that differentiated arbitrarily on the basis of gender, so that women would have the opportunity to pursue their talents, whatever those talents might be, and to face no artificial barriers.
Her passion and dissenting opinions earned her a cult pop culture fandom to whom she was affectionately known as the notorious RBG. But with just over a month left before the presidential election, her death brings not just grief, but a wave of political uncertainty. Her position is set to be filled by a Trump nominee, despite her dying wish not to be replaced till a new president is installed. If so, the vacancy on the bench will be third filled by Trump, meaning he has the power to create a right-dominated bench for decades to come. Let's cross to our fangirl for her perspective on the events.
Thanks, Tavleen. Today, I'm not just fangirling. I'm reflecting. I'm remembering the life of a feminist champion, a cultural icon, a breaker of glass ceilings, a crusader of equality. Of course, I could only be talking about one person, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The notorious RBG transformed the law and defied societal expectations along the way. After graduating top of her class at Cornell University, being one out of only 9 women in her 500-strong class at Harvard, and becoming the first female tenure professor at Columbia University, Bader Ginsburg served as the leader of the ACLU's Women's Rights Project. In this role, she took on groundbreaking cases to become trailblazer in gender equality legislation in the US, winning 5 out of 6 landmark cases she argued before the Supreme Court. Then, in 1993, she became just the second woman on the bench of America's highest court, a responsibility which she did not take lightly. Her work ethic was unmatched. Even after the death of her husband, and while dealing with her own health issues, RBG hardly missed a day on the bench. We're not just mourning the loss of a phenomenal woman, but everything she represented. Justice, progress, and the power of dissent. Her presence on the bench provided security for so many vulnerable Americans. The political, legal, and social uncertainty that follows her death shows just how flawed a system is to allow politics to so plainly infiltrate the legal system. The collective grief we have witnessed around the world this past week simply demonstrates the transcending power of the notorious RBG. Her legacy will live on in the women of future generations for who she paved the way with her tireless dedication to justice and equality. Rest in power, RBG. Back to you, Tavleen.
Thanks, Sophia. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode and the season. We'll be back with a special holiday episode over the summer, but I think it's a good time to reflect that in spite of a persistent global pandemonium, we have managed to create 2 whole seasons worth of content while sheltered in our homes. Which makes me wonder, did we really ever need a studio? A big desk, an auto cue, fancy lights? Keep safe, stay connected and enlightened, because now more than ever, the struggle, it's real.